I never imagined that one day I'd stand in the middle of a hospital hallway, holding a clipboard with trembling hands, knowing that the next words I spoke would decide who lived and who died. It sounds dramatic, I know. And if you've never worked in a hospital on the edge of collapse, maybe it does sound exaggerated. But on that night, it was exactly like that, raw, brutal, and terrifyingly real. The kind of moment that sticks to you for the rest of your life, no matter how many night shifts you survive afterward. So if you're watching this, stay with me until the end. Because what happened that night still haunts me. And you'll understand why I'll never forget the faces of the two people who needed the same ICU bed, and why I had to choose only one. The shift started like every other chaotic evening during that season. People coughing in the waiting room, alarms beeping in the ICU, doctors shouting orders, families pacing the hallways like ghosts desperate for someone to tell them things would be okay. I'd been a nurse for years already, but nothing prepares you for the kind of overwhelming pressure that comes when the hospital hits its breaking point. We were full. Overflowing, actually. The ICU had been at maximum capacity for weeks. Patients on ventilators lined the walls of rooms that weren't designed to hold them. Every day it felt like we were patching holes in a sinking ship, hoping we'd make it just one more shift without losing anyone we shouldn't lose. Around 9 p.m., the charge nurse looked at me with that expression, one I'd learned to dread. The kind of expression that already tells you the news is bad before a single word is spoken. "We've got 2 criticals coming in," she said, "and only 1 ICU bed just opened up." My stomach tightened instantly. Whenever she used the phrase 2 criticals, it meant the decision wasn't about treatment strategies or medication adjustments. It was about survival probabilities. And survival probabilities meant someone would get everything we had left, and someone wouldn't. There's something people outside healthcare don't understand. They think decisions like these are made by some committee, or a doctor in a closed room, or an ethics board with clipboards and long discussions. Maybe in movies they are. But in real life, sometimes they fall into the hands of whoever's there, whoever's available, whoever just happens to be standing in the hallway when the call comes in. And that night, that person was me. The ER doors burst open first with the paramedics rolling in a middle-aged man, maybe around 50, barely conscious, pale, struggling to breathe. His oxygen saturation was dangerously low, and you could hear the gurgling in his lungs even without a stethoscope. One of the paramedics shouted his numbers at me, and I scribbled everything down mechanically, though my mind was already tracking his decline. He needed intervention immediately. Without a ventilator and an ICU bed, his chances were slim. 10 minutes later, 10 minutes that felt like hours, the second patient arrived. A young woman, 23, barely out of college. She'd been in a severe car accident, her face still streaked with blood and tears. Her pulse was rapid and thready, her breathing shallow and uneven. Internal bleeding, most likely. Her vitals were bad, worse than the man's in some ways, but she was young, and youth in medicine does count. Whether people like to admit it or not, it does. I could already feel the invisible weight settling onto my chest. I knew their names, their ages, their conditions, and I knew there was only 1 bed upstairs. The attending physician rushed in and did what he could. Orders flying, medications administered, fluids pumped as quickly as possible. But he couldn't make the decision about the bed. He was already buried under 6 other critical cases and 3 surgeries waiting for him. The responsibility got handed down the chain until it reached the person who had the bandwidth to process it in the moment. And that was me. I remember stepping into the supply room, closing the door behind me, and leaning my head against the cold cabinet. I didn't cry. I didn't freeze. But for a few seconds, I just breathed. Deep, shaky breaths, trying to clear my thoughts, trying to find some kind of moral compass in the middle of complete chaos. When I walked out, their families were already gathering in the hallway. The man's wife looked at me like I was the last hope she had left. Her hands were clenched together so tightly her knuckles were white. She kept whispering, "Please, please help him," as if I were holding a switch that could turn his fate around. It's the kind of desperation that claws into your soul, because you know you can't promise them anything. And the young woman's parents. God, her mother was sobbing uncontrollably, barely able to stand. Her father had this look on his face, like he was trying to absorb every single detail, every word we said, but none of it was reaching him through the shock. I analyzed their charts again and again. I consulted with the respiratory therapist, the trauma nurse, the doctor on call. But ultimately, everyone kept circling back to me. Who are we sending up to the ICU? Those words echoed in my mind like a nightmare. The man had a chance, but only if he got the bed immediately. His oxygen was dropping steadily. He was slipping fast. Without aggressive treatment, he wouldn't make it through the next hour. The young woman, her condition was critical too, but she had more physiological reserve. Her age worked in her favor. Her chances of surviving the next couple of hours were slightly higher, even without ICU-level support, though still far from guaranteed. The decision came down to minutes, to probability, to the cold calculus of medicine that people like to pretend doesn't exist. When I finally walked into the hallway and saw the two families waiting, it felt like time froze. My hands tingled from the adrenaline. My throat felt tight. I opened my mouth to speak. But before I could say anything, the man's wife rushed toward me. "Is he going to be okay?" she asked. And there it was again, that desperate hope, raw and trembling. I gently held her hands. "We're doing everything we can," I said. "But he needs intensive care immediately." She nodded rapidly, almost frantically. "Then take him. Please. Take him now." Behind her, I could see the young woman's parents clutching each other, tears streaming. They knew the situation too. It wasn't a secret. They'd overheard the staff. They knew. I swallowed hard. My voice almost failed me. "I need a moment," I whispered. My supervisor approached and said quietly, "We trust your judgment." Those words shouldn't have made me feel worse, but they did. Because I didn't feel like someone equipped to make a judgment call. I felt like someone being forced to choose between two tragedies. I walked back into the trauma bay and looked at both patients again, side by side on parallel stretchers, fighting for their lives. Machines beeping, nurses rushing, the man's breaths growing shallower, the young woman's blood pressure dropping, and somehow, clarity began to form. Not easily, not cleanly, but painfully. The man wouldn't last without the ICU bed right now. The young woman might. She had a slightly larger window, a slim margin, but a margin nonetheless. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, "Okay, do it." Then I spoke firmly to the team. "Send the man up. He gets the last ICU bed." And in that moment, the entire room moved with purpose, pushing, preparing, stabilizing, transporting. The decision was made, but the weight of it, that stayed with me. Because as soon as they rolled him away, I turned back to the young woman. And I saw the fear in her eyes. She was awake, barely, but awake enough to understand. She whispered, Am I going to die?" And that question hit me harder than anything else that night. I took her hand, squeezed it gently, and said, "I'm here. I'm not leaving you. We're going to fight." She nodded weakly, tears slipping down her temples. And that's where everything changed, because nothing after that went the way we expected. The next 40 minutes blurred into a chaotic storm of alarms, rushing footsteps, and rapid-fire decisions. Every time I checked her vitals, something else slipped a little more out of range. Her pressure dropped again. Her breathing became more irregular. The internal bleeding we suspected was accelerating. I called the surgeon on emergency consult, but he was already elbow deep in another critical operation and couldn't break away. We were on our own, trying to buy time, trying to keep her stable enough to make it through the next hour. I kept talking to her, even when her eyes fluttered and she seemed barely conscious. I told her to keep fighting, to stay with me, to breathe even when it hurt. I don't know if she heard everything, but her hand gripped mine weakly every time I spoke. And sometimes, that's enough to anchor a person to life. Someone's voice, someone's presence, someone refusing to let go. But the truth is, I was terrified. Because deep down, I knew that if she took a turn for the worse before a new bed opened up, we wouldn't have what we needed to save her. Out of nowhere, chaos erupted from the opposite side of the ER. One of the techs rushed toward me, nearly out of breath. "The man! ICU bed 3. His numbers are crashing." My heart sank. He had just been moved upstairs not even 15 minutes earlier. My legs moved on autopilot as I bolted toward the elevator, my mind spinning. How? How was he already crashing? He was the one who wasn't supposed to survive without the bed. We made the call to save him. And yet, when I got to the ICU, they were already working on him aggressively. Compressions, meds, ventilator adjustments, everything. But his heart rhythm was deteriorating fast. He was in full cardiac arrest. We kept fighting. I helped with the compressions until my arms shook. They shocked him once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. The room grew tense. The attending looked at the clock. Then he said the words that never get easier, no matter how many years you've worked in a hospital. Time of death, 10:42 p.m. Silence fell, thick and suffocating. The monitors were still beeping faintly, as if mocking the finality of the moment. I swallowed a hard knot in my throat. I knew what would come next. I would have to walk downstairs and face his wife, who had begged me for help, who had looked at me like I was her last hope. But before I even took a breath to steady myself, the ICU charge nurse touched my arm. "If he passed," she said quietly, "that opens the bed." I stared at her, stunned. The timing was brutal, cruel even, but it was also reality. Without wasting another second, I sprinted back to the ER. When I reached the young woman, a nurse shouted, "She's crashing." Her blood pressure had plummeted to near non-existent numbers. Her skin was turning clammy, her breath shallow whispers. We were losing her. I didn't hesitate this time. "Call the ICU. Tell them we're sending her up now. Move, move, move." We raced her to the elevator, monitors rattling, IV bags swaying, everyone shouting vitals and holding equipment that needed to stay connected. I held her hand the whole way up, whispering, "Stay with me. Just a little more. The bed is ready. Just hold on." Her eyelids fluttered, then dropped. For one terrifying second, I thought we were too late, but then her chest rose in a weak but steady breath. She was still there, still fighting. When we got her into the ICU room, the team launched into action. Blood transfusions, emergency stabilizing measures, rapid imaging, surgical prep. It was a whirlwind, but this time the storm had direction. Hope, a real chance. Hours passed. I stayed far beyond the end of my shift, partly because they needed hands, but mostly because I couldn't bring myself to leave her. After everything that had happened, I needed to know. Finally, around 3 a.m, the surgeon approached us, fatigue etched into every line on his face. I braced myself. "She made it through the surgery," he said. "She lost a lot of blood, but she's stable now. She's not out of the woods, but right now she has a real shot." A real shot. Those words hit me so hard my eyes stung. I thanked him, then stepped away and sat in a quiet corner of the hallway, letting my mind process everything for the first time since the night began. But the shift wasn't done with me yet. The man's wife was still in the family room. waiting, crying, hoping for an update. I walked in slowly. Her eyes lifted to mine, desperate, fragile. I sat beside her, and I told her the truth. She broke, completely. A sound came out of her that still haunts me. A sound made of grief, disbelief, and agony all at once. I held her as she sobbed into my scrubs, her tears soaking through the fabric. She kept saying, "He was just here. He was just talking to me. He was just alive." That's the thing people outside healthcare don't see. We don't just treat patients. We carry their family's heartbreak too. And sometimes, that responsibility crushes you in ways you can't even put into words. When she finally calmed enough to breathe steadily, she looked at me through red, swollen eyes. "You tried, didn't you?" she whispered. I nodded, tears burning in my own eyes. "We did everything we could." She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "Thank you for being there with him." I didn't expect gratitude, not after what happened. But sometimes grief brings out a strange kind of grace in people. And her words were something I didn't realize I needed. I stayed with her until she was ready to leave. Then I walked back upstairs to check on the young woman one last time. She was sedated, hooked up to machines, but alive. Her lungs were supported. Her blood pressure was holding. Her color was better. And for the first time all night, something inside me loosened. She lived. Not because I'm a hero, not because I made the perfect decision. There was no perfect decision that night, only impossible choices, with consequences that stay with you forever. But she lived because we fought for her, because she held on during those crucial minutes, and because sometimes fate gives you a sliver of mercy in the middle of chaos. I left the hospital long after sunrise. The sky was a pale gray, the air cold, the parking lot empty except for the night shift cars. I sat in my car, closed my eyes, and exhaled a breath I felt like I'd been holding for hours. People think nursing is about compassion, bandages, and stethoscopes. But sometimes it's about standing on the edge of two lives and having to choose which one you can pull back from the darkness. That night taught me something brutal and unforgettable. Saving someone will never feel the same when you had to lose someone else to do it. But it also taught me why we keep coming back, shift after shift, even when it feels impossible. Because sometimes, you get to watch someone open their eyes again. You get to hear their voice. You get to see their family hug them with a relief so deep it shakes you. 2 weeks later, when the young woman woke up fully, her parents asked to meet me. She held my hand with tears in her eyes and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." And maybe I didn't choose perfectly that night. Maybe no one could have. But in that moment, I knew I had chosen with everything I had. And in this job, that's all any of us can do. Thank you for listening to my story, for staying with me until the end. Nights like that never leave you, and neither do the faces of the people whose lives touch yours for just a moment. If you appreciated this story, or want to hear more real experiences from the ER, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps these stories reach more people, and it means more than you know.